Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's July 15th, 1992. Kind of a strange day for weather out here on Main Street in Estevan, but nonetheless, it's once again time for the annual fair parade. Now, normally I would be joined in a seat next to me by Mr. Dwayne Kukoy, sportscaster over at CJSL, but unfortunately he had to work this afternoon, so we're doing this one solo. So, we'll get right to it, and as soon as our cameraman gets around to the parade, we'll let you know what's happening. Leading the parade today is a color party from the Royal Canadian Legion here in Estevan. And of course, the traditional pipers. Can't have a parade without bagpipers. And of course, a car from the Estevan City Police leading the parade. And some representatives of the Legion in a 1955 Nash Metropolitan. Beautiful little car. And beautifully restored. And next up, in a Model A Roadster, beautifully restored as well. Of course, courtesy of Walter Senchuk and Senchuk Motors. Mayor John Empey leading the parade. It's the smiling faces. And right behind, it's the area's Member of Parliament for the Souris Moose Mountain constituency, Mr. Len Gustafson. Smiling Mr. Gustafson. Of course, got the cowboy hat on, ready for the rodeo.
Well, you can pick up more than one.
And next up, we have the president of the Estevan Exhibition Association, Mr. Bill Owen. Mr. Bill Owen in a beautiful Chevy Cavalier Z24. Next up, the float from the city of Estevan, Saskatchewan's Energy City. Of course, a traditional theme here in Estevan, and also the sunshine capital of Canada. Decked out, of course, as well with the Canada 125 flags, this being the 125th birthday of our beautiful country. Next up, some clowns from the Estevan Chamber of Commerce, and a girl who appears to be a pumpkin, who hasn't been out in the sun often enough. And behind that, it's the Rodeo Queen, I believe. I'm not aware of who the Rodeo Queen is, but she's a lovely lass, and she's throwing bubblegum to all the happy, appreciative kids, making their day. Next up, it's an interesting float, has a lot to do with the rodeo that's ongoing in Estevan right now. Direct from Australia, it's William Go and Christopher McGregor. Christopher McGregor, a 5-year-old whip-cracking champion, and also Mr. Go, a whip-cracking champion. So an interesting sort of a multinational flavor to the rodeo this year, and I'm sure all the folks who've attended it have enjoyed it very much. Next up, it's the Estevan Cooperative Association. The Estevan Co-op, growing together with Canada. Lots of smiling faces, and representatives from the local Cooperative Association. And then it's the Downtown Business Association. And boy, this is certainly a colorful entry. We've got some dressed up dogs. We got kids on very colorful bicycles. Of course, that always being a tradition in parades here in Saskatchewan. I can remember my dad putting clickers on my spokes when I was about 5 years old. And that one kid who's got the black bike dressed up as a horse has done just an excellent job. Next up, it's the Estevan Shoppers Mall. And it's the big smiley roundhead guy. I'm not exactly sure who he's the representative of, but nonetheless, he's kind of interesting looking. The Estevan Shoppers Mall, of course, and the many merchants there sponsoring this float, Western motif. And holy cow, I think they threw me some candy. I can actually get out here and get this candy. I don't believe this. That's the first time I've ever beaten any of the kids down here to get some candy. We got a good area here. We didn't get a lot of kids in it this year. Of course, lots of children in attendance here, and they're all very happy to have the candy coming at them. Next up, the Fat Cat from the Estevan Credit Union. And they're throwing out something a little different, candy in a balloon. CJSL Radio, the next float following the credit union. Of course, CJSL, over the year, many of their announcers volunteer a great deal of time and effort into CableNet Productions, and we appreciate them very much, and we thank them for that. Next up, it's Helfrich Building Materials and Beaver Lumber. Beaver Lumber with a little playground float on the back there. And some of the horses from the rodeo. Some of the horses, beautiful livestock, just absolutely beautiful. And next up, following this trike from Beaver Lumber, we have Anderson's Music Academy and Music for Young Children. And some Floyd Kramer piano course, young children, being young, the best time to start them in a musical career. And our hats go off to all the folks who take the time and effort to organize this. A beautiful float. There's the musical notes in puffy things. I can't think of what those things are called. I didn't pay much attention at my wedding. At any rate, we also have a Chevy Sprint from Anderson's. Oh, and look, it's Mr. Beaver. It's Mr. Beaver. Joe Beaver. How you doing, Joe? Joe, let's have a pencil. All right, Joe. Thank you very much. A pencil from Joe Beaver. Thanks, Joe Beaver. And one of the crowd getting a pen from Joe Beaver as well. Anyways, back out to the parade in a Lincoln Continental. We have it's actually a limo. It's Touch of Class. A nice float from them. And a beautifully restored John Deere Model H. Just absolutely beautiful. I bet you that tractor didn't look as good when it came out of the factory. Of course, the H, a little single-cylinder tractor built back in the days when most John Deeres were twins. Looks sort of similar to an A or a 50. Just a beautiful job done on that tractor. And of course, that courtesy of Prosper Tractor. And next up, pulled by Schindel and Basin, we've got the Estevan Bruins float and the Bruins Hockey School, of course, from August the 17th to the 22nd. And the Bruins urge you to register now for that. So if you have any questions, just phone them at the Bruin office and they'll certainly take care of you. Next up, we have the Estevan and District Freundschaft Society. Of course, the German Friendship Society and all the happy, smiling faces on that float. Of course, a lot of German heritage in this area, and people proud of that and like to remember. Next up, we've got a go-kart and a little trailer from the Estevan Big Brothers and Sisters, and a couple of monkeys, apparently. A couple of happy monkeys. Uh-oh, look up, look, oh, these guys are gonna eat the camera. I can tell these guys are gonna eat the camera. They look hungry. They're looking at the camera. A couple of good-looking goats there, eh? And a goat dog, of course, doing an excellent job of herding the goats, keeping them in line. Goat herding, and sheep herding for that matter, a fascinating thing. In fact, in Britain, they make primetime television shows out of it. Really something to see the control the dogs have over the animals. A couple of very nicely decorated kids pulling a little float with their little puppy in it from the Kennel Club. And isn't that great? And right behind that, we have some more folks from the Kennel Club. Some beautiful dogs and some children with their pets walking along. A nice-looking bull mastiff, of course, not to be confused with a pit bull terrier. Bull mastiff, a nice breed. And those folks look happy to be here as well. Next up, we have the Volunteers for Jesus and some children riding in the pickup along with them. And some very enthusiastic voices for Jesus, and they're happy to be in the parade and to show their faith in God. A lot of enthusiasm there. Nice to see. Next up, pulled by a beautiful, I believe it's a 1966 Mercury, or not Mercury, I'm sorry, it's a Meteor Montcalm, which was the Canadian version of a Mercury back in the days when we didn't have Mercury up here. It's the Estevan Elks number 113 branch, and the Elks Auxiliary number 74. Of course, dressed out in the traditional purple and white, and with the big elk head on the front of the float, and tossing some candy to the kids, and the kids very appreciative. Next up, of course, it's the Shriners, and if you're as old as I am, you don't have to go check your contacts. The bikes have gotten bigger than they were back in the old days when the Shriners rode these things. Of course, I guess the guys are getting a little older now, and they like to go for the comfort, so they've gone for the luxury models now. Of course, the Wawa Temple out of Regina, and no, I could be out of Regina, could be the Estevan and District Shrine Club. Don't want to confuse anything there. Very nice to have them. Next up, it's the Hira student float. Got some lovely pets again. And a couple of kids on motocross bikes. And boy, I tell you, this will be the only time you'll ever see a motocross bike riding down Main Street unless there's a police pursuit behind them. Next up. And we've got the Antique Car Club. And I'm a little confused here. My itinerary is not quite matching what we've got, but we've got a beautiful Model A Roadster. And following that, breaking things up a little bit, we've got the truck from our local Novus Windshield Repair and Replacement here in Estevan, and of course everybody knows Novus. Next up, sort of an oddity, a metallic green Studebaker truck. Now a lot of people out there won't even remember Studebaker, much less their trucks, but Really a unique vehicle, quite a tall hood on that machine. I really can't place what year it is. I would guess late 40s, perhaps early 50s, like 50, 51. Looks like he's had a little trouble with it, trying to get her going. Of course, I was talking about him, so the thing had to stall. But nonetheless, a unique vehicle, and certainly one that's been restored very nicely, and one that we're happy to see. Right behind that, we've got a 1959 Chevy El Camino. Now, this isn't a conversion. This came from the factory this way. It was a very early El Camino. Of course, with the Batmobile fins. Pretty controversial styling for Chevy in 1959. Some more folks from the Antique Auto Club. Now, right after that, we've got, you may be able to tell this is slightly modified. It's a Model A Roadster. I don't think there's much Model A left in it. Immediately following that, a Model T. I believe it's Model T. If it's some obscure brand, you'll forgive me for that, but it sure looks like a Model T. Beautiful condition. And then the float from AECL, the Atomic Energy of Canada Limited. And of course, the AECL maintaining quite a presence here in the province over the last year with the proposed nuclear reactor, and I don't think we've heard the end of that. Next up, it's a Cockshot Model 80, a Cockshot Hard Car, back from the 1940s. Beautifully restored. Of course, one of the many exhibits over at the fair this year, coordinated with the Agricultural Society, and it's always nice to see those. Now we've got some newer rolling stock. It's a John Deere 4560, followed by an 87, I believe 8780, although I may be reading that wrong, 8760. Don't have my John Deere numbers down. Anyways, beautiful tractors from John Deere, Prosper Tractor here in Estevan. Of course, our local John Deere dealer. And always impressed by the sheer size of the machinery. Of course, following the two very large pieces of rolling stock from Prosper Tractor, it's the SAS Power float. And of course, once again, SAS Power urging us that there are so many ways to be power-wise. And of course, in today's conservation-minded culture, that's certainly something to keep in mind. Shut the lights off when you don't need them, don't plug the car in, etc. Next up, it's the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 2067, Unit 4. Of course, one of the very strong trade unions in the area. And nice to see some representation from organized labor in the parade this year. Some smiling faces and a lot of happy kids on the float. Look like they're really enjoying themselves. Oh boy, they like me so much they just about threw me another candy there, but I couldn't get up and get it. Now, it's the city of Weyburn. Hold down the booing, everyone. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, the traditional rivalry between Estevan and Weyburn, probably one of the things that have allowed both of our communities to grow to the strong degree that they have. And the city of Weyburn float also celebrating Canada 125 and showing off some of the many recreational aspects of the city of Weyburn. Next up, it's Teresa's Costume Palace, a costume for all occasions. Teresa's, of course, the big costume supplier here in the city of Estevan, and some pretty elaborate costumes we got there. We got Batman, of course, riding in the back seat, and Batman must be tired from all those promotional appearances he's putting in with the new movie right now, but Batman's still gracious enough to make an appearance here in Estevan, and isn't that swell? Next up, it's guys from Bordertown Chevrolet and the number 117 dirt track car. Beautiful car, sponsored by Dominion Oilfield Supply and Western Fiberglass, among others. And a beautifully turned out dirt track car. Very, very nice. Next up, it's the city of Estevan's oldest fire truck. It's a 1928 model, still in wonderful condition. I'm not sure, I suspect it's probably a Seagrave. It's number 1 at any rate. And following that, what a machine. It's our brand new Volvo fire truck, the 1992 version, just recently acquired by the city of Estevan. What a machine. Holy cow, it looks like you could take people camping in that sucker. Next up, it's the parade organizer, Miss Cindy Steyer, and we'd like to thank Cindy for all the hard work she did in organizing this parade. A lot of smiling faces, a lot of kids. And Lorna Lacham, of course, from the City Chamber of Commerce and the Mall Merchants Association, riding alongside with her. So that looks like about it, ladies and gentlemen. That's another one in the can. The third one for me, Fair Parade, and it certainly has been an enjoyable experience. As I said, there are a lot of smiling, happy kids down here, and it's always something to remember. For my operator, Curtis Rushaway, I'd like to thank you for joining us, and until next year's Fair Parade, I'm Don Williams. Bye-bye. Have a good summer.